Earlier today, Marvel released a new behind-the-scenes featurette and international trailer for Thor Ragnarok. They're both really dope, and we've got to talk about it. What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. Hey, real quick, if you want to stay up to date with all the sweet little nuggets of information that come out for comic book movies, subscribe to this channel and make sure you hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Oh, and shout out to Michael A.T., who got the nerd card question correct on my Green Lantern Armor League video. You, sir, know your stuff when it comes to nerdy things. There'll be another nerd card question at the end of this video. Now, getting right into this, guys, the international trailer and the behind-the-scenes featurette that dropped today were both really awesome, and there's a lot of little nuggets in there. Particularly one thing that really interested me was Taika Waititi talking about how Ragnarok represents the death of something and the rebirth of a new thing, and he approached this whole film with being like different and sort of creating a new type of movie, maybe even for Marvel. And I think it's like a super meta thing. So not only is the entire MCU heading towards its own version of Ragnarok, meaning Infinity War, and you know, the whole possibility of some kind of a reboot or something crazy happening at the end of Avengers 3 or maybe Avengers 4, but they're also getting to this place with the MCU where they need to shake things up. They need to change things. There's been a lot of complaints from people saying that the MCU formula is growing a little bit tired. We're seeing the same kind of movies in this more or less cookie cutter fashion. And even me, someone who's a huge MCU fan, has started to kind of fatigue of these models in the same way they do their films. Even a film like Doctor Strange that was really interesting from a visual perspective was more or less what you would expect for a Marvel origin film, which I thought was kind of a mistake. I felt like they needed to sort of break away from that formula. Well, Thor Ragnarok literally looks to be like that sort of a movie. It's a complete departure from a lot of the ways they've put together movies in the past, which is so interesting because it directly ties to Infinity War, and yet you hear things like Taika Waititi doing a lot of ad-libs and sort of in-the-moment shooting on set, you know, them wanting to approach the whole thing with like a fresh feel, and the whole vibe of the film is really just a new kind of attitude. They even sort of say that. Chris Hemsworth says that in the featurette, and it's like a swagger. Like, the Thor Ragnarok has this sort of like swagger to it. It looks like a really balls out kind of adventure film, which is like really refreshing. It's a really awesome thing to have that going on. Something else that was really interesting that was said in the behind the scenes featurette was Mark Ruffalo. He was talking about how Thor is on this journey. He's been sort of on this journey of self-discovery. And he says when we pick him up, he is at the end of that journey, which is really interesting. And you know, look, we have to keep in mind here, what has Thor been doing? Remember how Thor and Hulk were classically absent during Civil War? This might even be what was happening during Civil War. I know they did those little parody things where he's in Australia with his roommate and things like that, but I think in the story sense, this is the answer to that. So imagine Thor is on this quest after having the vision in Age of Ultron. He needs to know what exactly he was seeing, what are these Infinity Stones or these different things that he saw in the vision, and who's this guy in the purple chair, right? Who is Thanos? So he's on this sort of a journey to try to figure all of this out. And if you look at some of the footage from the international trailer, you'll notice that there's a shot of him like fighting Surtur, but he has his long hair. We also know from the trailers that when Hela confronts him in New York and breaks the hammer, that he has his long hair. We think that he's actually with Loki and maybe even Doctor Strange looking for Odin at that time. So one has to start to sort of put these pieces together and think that a portion of Thor Ragnarok will see Thor with his hair, and I think that he's going to go from Earth to perhaps some other dimension where he meets Surtur. I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but he's sort of, it gets to this certain point where he realizes what needs to be done, but he's sort of thrashed around by people that already have a bigger galactic picture picture of what is happening. So I think that's like with Hela and Serta, possibly even with Thanos, if, you know, Thanos and Hela are going to do the Mistress Death Thanos thing, it's possible that they're already pulling a lot of strings around the galaxy, and Thor just kind of, as he's discovering it, gets sort of tossed to the wayside. So then he obviously goes to Sakaar, which is going to be the planet controlled by the Grand Master, and look, they're going to put together the team and go fight Hela to prevent Ragnarok. So it's really, really interesting, but I like how this movie feels like it's going to tie into Infinity War, not only because the vision of the Infinity Stones are the inciting incident for Thor to diverge from the Avengers and go about his own way, but it's possible that what he learns on that individual journey brings him to another fork in the road, and that would be his first conflict with Hela, and he discovers that, you know, look, some bad things are going on. The last thing I want to talk about in this footage and just in general is the focus on the Chinese market and the focus on the international marketplace. So if you look, Chris Hemsworth literally comes out and says, Marvel fans in China, I'm sure you're aware, Thor has been approved and it will be coming to theaters in China. It's like a really strange thing, but this is not uncommon. It's something that's going to continue to happen more and more and more. International gross is becoming a huge, huge thing for movie studios. So, you know, the best example I can give you is Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, when Spider-Man Homecoming first came out, in the first couple of weeks, there were a ton of reports that the movie wasn't making a lot of money. It didn't even make as much money as The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and all these other reports, and people were painting it in this bad light. The reality was, the way it was going to roll out into different marketplaces around the world was very carefully crafted, and it was crafted in what I would have to say is a successful way, because now Spider-Man Homecoming is the top grossing superhero film of the year. It's far eclipsed its predecessors of the Amazing Spider-Man series. It's closing in at like $840 million worldwide. So the international marketplace is a huge thing for Marvel Studios and really just movie studios in general. So that is why we get these sort of trailers that are cut in a way to appease these marketplaces. There are also changes made in the casting, in the way the narrative handles certain subjects, all sorts of little changes that will give the movie more of a mass appeal. To be honest with you, I don't personally mind this at all, because I kind of like that anime flavor. I kind of like the flavor that some other cultures have. So I don't really mind this at all, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Do you think there's too much focus on the international marketplace? Do you feel like they're getting all the good stuff and the national or trailers aren't as good? Let me know your thoughts about that. Interested to hear what you think about that subject in particular. That's pretty much all I have in this video. Just wanted to break down a few things that I gleaned from the new footage. I'm super duper hyped for Thor Ragnarok. I think it's personally going to be the best superhero movie of the year. It seems like it's going to be a ton of fun, a great ride, and yet still set a stage for what will happen in Infinity War, which is very, very important, something that the MCU does so well. All right, let's check that nerd card really quickly. The question is about Thor Ragnarok, and I want to know, that giant wolf that you see in the trailers, what's the name of that wolf? It comes from Norse mythology, but also has ties to Loki. So what is the name of that wolf that is shown fighting Hulk in the Thor Ragnarok trailers? Answer that question in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day. See ya!